Now, the very fabric of the First Amendment protects speech that others deem offensive. A couple of examples include neo-Nazi marches, such as this rally in the U.S. state of Missouri in 2007. And the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Westboro Baptist Church, whose members hold anti-gay protests at military funerals. Joshua Wheeler, director at the Thomas Jefferson Center for the Protection of Free Expression, says the U.S. government would find it very difficult to ban the controversial film.
Under the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, which guarantees that the government cannot restrict our freedom of speech, even this sort of speech is protected. A lot of people refer to this kind of speech as hate speech, and I think that's an accurate description. But as a legal matter, there's no exception for hate speech as a category of speech under the U.S. Constitution.
So does that mean there is no way, under the First Amendment anyway, to restrict this filmmaker?
You know, anyone who says there's no way does so at their risk. The Constitution is simply words, and they are words that their meaning is given to us through the American court system, and ultimately the U.S. Supreme Court decides what the Constitution means. And it's true that over time, different courts, when the court's made up of different persons, it has come up with different interpretations of the First Amendment. It has overturned some cases to say that, well, it really doesn't mean that, it means this. So I'm reluctant to say that the court would never find an exception for this kind of speech. I will say this, though, under current precedent, it's very difficult to see how the government could react in any way to prevent this film being made and this film being shown. And that's one of the things I hope we can get across in this interview, is that the government's hands are really tied in terms of trying to prevent this kind of offensive expression from being out on the internet or being shown to people. Now, I will one clarification, if we have a moment. The First Amendment does not give an affirmative right to free speech. A lot of people think that. It actually is just a check on the government's ability to censor our speech. Private acts of censorship aren't implicated by the First Amendment. And by virtue of that fact, there are ways in which perhaps the speech can be at least censored through private acts of censorship. My understanding is that YouTube has taken this video down, the video clip that so many people saw and were offended by. That's a completely private act of censorship, and so that doesn't implicate the First Amendment. YouTube has the right to determine what speech, what films are shown on its network.